We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no permission slips. If you're hearing that and wondering what it means, anonymous isn't a party. It isn't a candidate. It isn't a brand. It's the idea that ordinary people don't need permission to tell the truth out loud, especially when power turns cruel, when the government starts acting like a gang, and when propaganda tries to make you feel small and alone. We don't have one leader, because leaders can be bought. We don't have one headquarters, because headquarters can be raided. What we have is a simple instinct. When something is wrong, we show up, we document it, and we stand together. And right now, Donald Trump is losing it. He's back in Washington, D.C., and you can feel the panic behind the posts, behind the rants, behind the cheap distractions. Because while he tries to posture like a king, people across the country are starting to move, like citizens again, like workers, like neighbors, like communities who remember what solidarity looks like. In Minnesota, a general strike has been initiated, and it's spreading. A general strike, not a trending hashtag, not a symbolic day of outrage, a real we're not doing business as usual, while you attack our lives kind of action. We haven't seen a general strike at this scale in something like 70 years, and the hope straight up is that it becomes the biggest general strike in U.S. history in solidarity with pro-democracy forces who want to stop this authoritarian drift, who want to stop what they see as ICE and Border Patrol operating like a Gestapo-style invasion force, and who want to stop Trump's attacks on workers. Look at Minneapolis and St. Paul right now. It's around minus 16 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 16, and people are still out there. In that kind of cold, your face hurts in seconds, your lungs burn, your hands go numb, and they're still showing up. They're protesting what they call the ICE regime. They're calling in sick. They're walking off. They're refusing to cooperate with a system they believe is built to terrorize their neighbors. And while Minnesota holds the line, you turn your attention to New York City, solidarity with the nurses. 15,000 nurses out there every day, 9+ days already. You've got public officials showing up to back them. New York City's mayor, Zohran Madani, and Senator Bernie Sanders, because the nurses are saying something so basic it's embarrassing. It even needs to be said. We want a fair wage for the job we're doing. We want safe staffing. We want respect. You've got hospital executives and CEOs making $20, $30 million a year, and they can't provide the basics for the people who are literally on the front lines keeping patients alive. And then you've got workers in Minnesota looking at a state packed with Fortune 500 companies and saying, so this is how it's going to be under the Trump regime. You think we're just cogs in your wheel. You think you're going to take our money, take our labor, and what? Stash it away in some Qatari bank account so you can build yourself golden arches and golden ballrooms. Because that's the vibe Trump is pushing. That's what he's obsessed with. Gold spectacle, fake grandeur. Look at what he was posting, more pictures, more renderings of golden arches. He wants to build in Washington, D.C., while people are terrified about healthcare, terrified about rent, terrified about whether they can even stay afloat. And let's be clear, the people don't want golden arches. They don't want AI slop fantasies of monuments to Trump's ego. They want to live a life with dignity. They want to support their families. They want to afford rent. They want to buy a home without feeling like they need a miracle. They want to go to the doctor without fearing bankruptcy, and they don't want their communities invaded by ICE and Border Patrol like it's an occupation. It's pretty simple, Donald. There are folks mapping where this general strike is spreading, showing other locations where people are refusing to play along. And yes, we've seen massive No Kings protests, and the sense is those protests keep getting bigger and bigger. But now people are asking the next question, the question that scares regimes like this the most. What else can we do? What can we, the people, do to stand up to this and make sure they feel our power, while they try to hoist authoritarianism across this nation in the demented image of a dictator with no clothes? And while people are striking in the cold, Trump is online ranting like a lunatic. He posts about a record cold wave expected to hit 40 states, and then does the same tired routine. Could the environmental insurrectionists please explain whatever happened to global warming? First of all, notice his move. Everybody who disagrees with him is an insurrectionist now. It's the authoritarian vocabulary game labeled the opposition as criminals so you can justify cracking down on them. But here's the part that makes him look even dumber. He's also the guy who talks about conquering Greenland, annexing it, taking it over. And he argues it's important because ice is melting and new shipping routes will open up around Greenland. Do you realize what he's admitting when he says that? He's literally acknowledging the impact of global warming right there, while mocking the idea of climate change in the next breath. And the same warming that melts ice in the Arctic also destabilizes weather systems and contributes to extreme conditions. Cold snaps don't disprove global warming. They're part of a planet that's getting increasingly chaotic. But Trump can't help it. He takes the microphone and turns it into a clown horn. And the tragedy is, he should be nowhere near the Oval Office. And then there's the international humiliation tour. Trump goes to Davos, and the story is that it was humiliating, yet he comes back acting like it was a triumph. He trashes the United Kingdom, and there's uproar. And he makes this claim that NATO allies didn't help the United States in any war, that they never sacrificed for America in Afghanistan. Think about what that means. Trump already has a history of insulting American service members, calling fallen troops suckers and losers. In that same spirit, this rhetoric effectively spits on Allied soldiers too: UK troops, Danish troops, Canadian troops, French troops, who fought and died alongside Americans. NATO countries sent soldiers to fight shoulder to shoulder on the front lines after the US invoked Article 5. That's history. That's documented sacrifice. And Trump treats it like disposable trash because it doesn't serve his ego. And here's the political warning that comes with it. Any leader anywhere who refuses to stand up to Trump, when he does this, who kisses the gangster ring, risks losing legitimacy at home, because people can smell submission. And if your country or state wants to turn into a Putin bootlicker, project then sure bow down. But don't pretend that's strength. And speaking of Putin, the clip describes a whole grotesque tableau. Trump's people in his orbit doing the bootlicking routine. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, in Russia, meeting with Vladimir Putin. And Putin, in this telling, is sliding into Trump's so-called Board of Peace, a board framed as a club of authoritarians, with no NATO democracies involved, just strong men and their friends. The implication is that Putin is offering money and influence, and the price is simple: unfreeze funds that were frozen because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then everybody can pat themselves on the back while pretending they're the guardians of truth, ranting about fraudulent elections and smirking at the idea of democracy. And Trump spins it like it's brilliant. What a great trip. So much accomplished. He claims there's a framework of a deal with NATO on Greenland, plus this Board of Peace. But then reality shows up and slaps him. Greenland's premier says, in plain words, nobody but Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark has the mandate to make deals about Greenland. Without them, it's not happening. And when asked about this deal people are talking about, the premier basically says, I don't know what's concrete in that deal. Translation, it's made up. It's fantasy. Then Trump goes right back to the greatest hits: election lies. He starts reposting nonsense like, in Pennsylvania, during the 2020 election, there were over 400,000 election errors alone, claiming direct switching of votes from one candidate to another, reposting sketchy accounts, leaning into QAnon-adjacent sludge. But here's the problem for him: those claims have been litigated. The cases got thrown out. He lost, and some of the lawyers who pushed the lies faced serious consequences, because making things up in court isn't free speech, it's misconduct. And that brings us to the broken system inside the US, too. The clip points to the Supreme Court, as part of that calling it pathetic, saying it doesn't represent the people, and pointing to the need for serious reform, especially after decisions that expanded protections for Trump and reduced accountability. In this framing, you compare it to Brazil, where the courts punished an insurrectionist ex-president harshly, while in the US the system bends in the other direction. Whether you agree with that comparison or not, the frustration is real. People see two tiers of accountability, one for the powerful, one for everyone else. Now we get to the part that makes your stomach turn. The Trump regime holds a press conference about a 5-year-old child, Liam Canajo Ramos, described as the little kid in a blue teddy hat. The allegation in the clip is that the child was kidnapped and used as bait to lure out his father, and that they were sent to detention facilities in El Paso, Texas, described as concentration camps in the rhetoric of the narrator. The officials, of course, try to sanitize it. Greg Bovino, identified as Trump's border figure, goes on camera and says Liam is doing great, says it's the least restrictive setting. I don't think it gets any better than that. Then he praises ICE and Border Patrol, as if they're the gold standard of care for people crossing the border. And then DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin says the little boy was abandoned by his own father. She claims ICE approached the father he ran and abandoned the child. And then she tries to flip it into a moral lecture about law enforcement, staying with the child in frigid temperatures, trying to bring him into custody with the mother who, she says, wouldn't take him. then says officers took care of the child and brought him to McDonald's. It's presented as, we didn't do anything wrong, the family did. Then a reporter asks the obvious questions. Does the father have a criminal record? What charges? And the answer is basically, we don't know, we'll have to get back to you. Another reporter asks, what's the son's legal status and immigration history? The answer, the family came across illegally as a family unit a few years back, but the official can't remember the date. Another asks about the mother legal status. Immigration history answer, they haven't encountered the mother as of this time. So you're watching officials talk confidently when it benefits them and suddenly become vague when asked for specifics. And then you get J.D. Vance. The clip calls him an evil shapeshifter who's changed identities multiple times, jumping in with the regime's favorite tactic, smear the protesters. He suggests the people out in the cold are out there defending sex offender criminal aliens, and he mocks them as if that's clever, because that's what authoritarians do. They don't argue policy. They attack the character of anyone resisting them. You're not a citizen with a moral objection. You're a domestic terrorist. You're not a nurse demanding safe staffing. You're greedy. You're not a neighbor protecting a family. You're a trafficker. It's language designed to justify brutality. If you're watching this, don't just watch. Share this. Talk about it. Support a strike fund if you can. Show up at a picket line if it's safe for you. Call your representatives. Back local journalists and legal aid. Help your neighbors know their rights. And when you see authoritarianism wearing a flag like a costume, call it what it is out loud together. We are anonymous, and we're not going anywhere.